We're looking at one of the CanDo bonds mats. This obviously is the mat for securing the bonds of 7. Before we engage with filling any numbers in on the mat, it's really important we do lots of practical activities to do with the pairs that make 7. So we might start, we've got our 7 counters here. We might think about how can we split our 7 into 2 groups. So if I've got 7 here, I've got 0 over here. Then what if I had 6 and 1, 5 and 2, 4 and 3, 3 and 4. And by this dynamic movement of the counters, we can really see clearly that as this set increases by 1, so this set decreases by 1, because my total is still 7. So we've got lots of practical activities exploring the pairs that make 7. These two-sided counters then are really powerful for a practical version of this visual image here. So at the moment I've got 7 red counters. So there's 7 red and no yellow ones, giving me my total of 7 counters altogether. If I then turn one of my counters over, I've still got my 7 counters, but now only 6 of them are red and 1 of them is yellow, and so on. It might be that children want to explore this first without it being systematic, obviously, but it's nice to gradually work towards looking at the relationship between the 2 groups. So we can see that as the first number is decreasing by 1, so the second number is increasing by 1, keeping our total of 7. That what do you notice question, really important to be asking at this point as well. So children really stop and look at those facts of 7 so that they can notice, as well as the decrease and increase element of it, that fact that if I've got 6 add 1, then I can also have 1 add 6. I've just swapped my reds and my yellows over. It's really nice to replicate this with tiles such as Numicon, so we can see how we can just turn them round, but we're still representing 6 plus 1 equals 7. For lots of children then, if we move on to this, they think they're recording it the wrong way round. They've seen so many calculations where the equals comes at the end that by putting the equals first, it really unsettles them. So it's important to do it a lot. So the language here is that I've got 7 counters, 7 of them are red and none of them are yellow. And then I've got 7 counters, 6 of them are red and 1 of them is yellow, and so on. But I'm always telling the story of my counters. I'm not just manipulating numbers without meaning. And then obviously I can colour my circles here to be recording how my counters look. This quadrant here is just a different representation of those bonds of 7. So if I'm working out how to get from 0 to 7 in 2 jumps, how big might my jumps be? So I'm starting on 0 and my first jump, well, let's do a jump of 2. So my first jump was 2. I'm aiming to jump 7, so that now means I need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A big jump of 5 to get to 7. If these big jumps are too much for the children to start with, then you might want to just split it into single jumps. So I might say, okay, so how many jumps shall we do first? Let's do 2 jumps. So I've landed on 2. So I'm on 2. Now how many jumps do I need to do? So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've done 5 more jumps. So altogether, I've done 7 jumps. So there's different ways you can use these number lines and jumps depending what the children already know and what they can do. This bottom section here is just a practice section really. So I've explored my pairs of 7, I've written them in different ways, I've modelled it in different ways. Now I just need to practice it. I need to get these bonds into my long-term memory. So we've used Coco here. She's got a number on each wing and you quite simply need to spot if those 2 numbers make a total of 7. So if it's a total of 7, you colour her beak. You could play this with children showing fingers to each other. One child shows a number between 0 and 7, the other child shows a number of fingers between 0 and 7, and they race to shout snap if their total is 7. Nice quiet game. Also looking at the ones that don't make 7. and verbalising how you know it's not 7. So it can't be 7 because. This last quadrant then is just another excuse to practice finding those pairs that make 7. You start every time in the bottom left-hand corner, and then you work your way somewhere to the right-hand side of the grid. So for this one, we're spotting the ones that make 7, so 4 add 3 equals 7. Does 5 add 1 equal 7? No, so I'm not going to go that way. So let's have a look this way. 6 and 1, yeah, that's 7. So there we go. So now I'm going to think, am I going this way? Well, I've already got 8, so the total of those two can't be 7 because I've got 8 in one of my numbers. So 4 add 3 is 7. And so on, working your way round the grid so you eventually do a track that goes all the way from the left-hand side and eventually comes to one of the squares in the right-hand side of your grid. Just a really nice way to practice spotting those pairs that make 7.